Okay, so Debbie, you want to go ahead and call us to order?
Yes. Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here. And we'll go ahead and do the pledge. Bill, you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we'll hop in with approval of minutes.
Motion to approve the regular meetings of February the 16th and the special meeting minutes of January the 24th, February the 15th, and February the 28th.
All right, do I have a motion?
Motion.
Seconded. Roll call?
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, department celebrations and updates. Start with the police.
Hello,
Chief
everyone.
Broxman, this is your first meeting.
Yes, it is.
Should've-
I'm Police Chief Paul Broxterman. I'm
Hold
very
on,
honored to be-
hold on. There is a rule that when you're a new police chief, you are required to bring donuts for everyone.
Well, next meeting I will have them here.
But that will not be your first meeting. That will be your second.
Yeah,
So
well,
let the
it'll be,
record reflect.
It'll be 2 dozen.
2 dozen. There you go.
I kind of got going. I didn't real. I failed to look over and realize this is your first meeting.
Yes.
So welcome, Chief Broxterman.
Thank you. So I have 2 noteworthy events that happened with our police department. On February 26, Officer Daphne Nickel responded to a call for service for a disabled vehicle on White Oak Road. There was no driver in the vehicle, so she ran the license plate and found the residence of the owner. No one was in the vehicle. It had been parked there for some time. So she responded to the house. There was no answer at the door, but she could hear that someone inside was in distress. So she did a forced entry into the home and found a male subject inside suffering from a head wound. The subject was confused and disoriented, and the temperature in the home was 45 degrees. So Officer Nichols summoned EMS to the scene. The subject was apparently suffering from hypothermia, transported to the hospital, and EMS believed that had the officer not gotten there that night, the subject probably would have died. So great work by Officer Nickel. And then on March 7th, Lieutenant Brian Berkey and Officer Jay Shaw received a call for service regarding a burglary in progress on Gaskins Road. The caller reported someone was trying to break into her residence with a brick against the door. As the officers arrived, the subject had already left the scene, but they got a description, and down the road, they found a subject matching the description, brought him back, and here he was the same individual. So he was charged with burglary, and he's in jail right now, which is good. So that's all I have.
Thank you. That's quite a lot.
Thank you. All right, Chief Broxman. One more thing for the police department. We do have a plaque we'd like to present this evening to Officer Sandy. So if everyone isn't aware, this is a companion that spent quite some time in the police department, mostly cared for by Chief Bachman. I'm sure provided a immeasurable amount of emotional support and service to the department in that regard. So we'd like to present Officer Sandy. Is Officer Sandy here? No. Okay. How is she adjusting?
As are you. As are you.
Naturally, I'm being blamed for her departure. But
Maybe this plaque will be of some condolence.
There really is a plaque.
I'll come around and get semi-official plaque. Loretta, did you throw this together? So, got the badge and the gun.
Well, she was the first therapy captain in the country, so she'll be proud to have her. That's her new charge. So, I hope you did well.
So when do we begin interviews to replace Officer Sandy?
That's true. There's 4 boots that can't be filled. We're gonna have to leave that open. All right. Chief Wright.
So there's a picture on one of our residents that we responded to on an EMS detail. The family stopped by with a nice thank you card and some cookies for our folks, which happens all the time. We have a great group of residents that constantly drop off things for us. In addition to that, last month we spent a good deal of time with flooding, checking roads, and the river was up and down, and we anticipate it's going to continue to be up and down and stay a little bit higher than normal pool. I think now it's supposed to crest at 46 feet next week. So we're still watching that. Thanks to Jake Ober from the service department. So when it was anticipated to be up 2 weeks now, I think it was, we did an overhaul on some of our boats and just double checking everything and got some spare parts. And we found out that Jake is a certified outboard mechanic. So John was gracious enough and Jake came up to help us change out some parts on one of the out drives, which saved us a great deal of time and frustration and things running great. We did receive a very nice unexpected gift of $8,000 and a donation from Mr. Robert Full through the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. Mr. Full has some ties to the township, owns some property in the township, and just granted us $8,000 for whatever projects in the fire department we need, which was greatly appreciated. The last thing I have is we did get a notice. This kind of bleeds over into John's territory, but Pond Run Road will be closed Monday, March 14th through Wednesday, March 16th between 2858, 2872. So they're going to be down there. Duke's going to be moving some utilities and some other prep work. I guess they're going to be replacing that bridge deck later this year. So just so everyone's aware. That is all I have. Thank you.
Chief Wright. Service Director Kohler.
At the beginning of the month, we had we had the big ice storm. That was pretty unique to what we do. But other than that, then we've got a lot of rain. So we have a lot of residents have called in about the ditching. So, we're taking those one at a time and trying to get those cleaned up. So we don't really have a whole lot of celebratory stuff this month.
That's all right. All right. Randy Parks.
I'll start with one piece of discouraging news. We had some vandalism at Spencer Shank with a dog waste receptacle and a light there. And so I'll be getting with John to see if there's something that we can plant around that light that might discourage people from wanting to get that close to it and destroy it. It's a light that lights up a flagpole in Shank Park. And so there are some things that we can plant around there that would discourage people from getting too close. We'll try that first. Some other celebratory things. We have a workday planned for March 26th. We had to stop the Cincinnati students at 30 this time. We had 30 volunteers sign up so they could make their credits for the year. And so we should likely get some work done both at Locust Corner and the Nature Park that Saturday. We'll just break them up into 2 groups. And for those of you working on the Easter egg hunt, I understand that the preparations are coming along good. So thank you for that. And then we do have some positive improvements coming up in the parks. There'll be a resolution later in the meeting and some of the plans are in place. So I'll just let the administrative folks and trustee number 3 discuss that when it's time. And I think that's all we have for parks.
Okay. All right. So the curiosity really does have the best of me. That the waste receptacles and the light vandalism are unrelated.
Well, they're both at Shank Park,
But one doesn't relate to,
The waste receptacle was damaged.
Oh, okay.
I thought it had new graffiti on it.
No, that was just. the light we replaced right after we took over Shank Park. But then, like, 2 weeks later, it was broke. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm throwing money at it.
Yeah.
So, but I think planning something, I mentioned that also in the email, or whatever, about planning some stuff around it. Maybe so it's not so eye-catching to people that likes just sitting out in the open. Because it's at foot level, somebody just take it, break it off.
Okay. For what it's worth, I also did have a resident reach out about canopies over some of the play equipment and.
I read that.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure.
And we'd like to do something about that as well, but they're about $3,000 a shot for the benches and the tables. And if we attack the playground, like she mentioned, we're up in the 20 or 30 grand portion.
Well, I know you guys are balancing more than one thing and very artfully and responsibly, I might say, but I just want to pass it along.
All right, we got it.
All right. Eddie, planning and zoning?
So our February was about as active as January. It's probably a little bit above average as far as activity goes. We had 15 total permits, 7 of which were new dwellings. So these neighborhoods just keep on going. We had our second land use committee meeting also at the beginning of the month, which went really well. We're finishing up a lot of our existing plan reviews and getting into existing additions and that sort of thing. So the land use plan is progressing pretty well. And we also had a conditional use permit approved for a Jiffy Lube right next to the Penn Station on State Route 125. So the old car wash will be redeveloped. So that's it.
Great. Thanks, Eddie. Loretta, administration.
Thank you. I just have a few items to share. The fiscal officer and I will be meeting with the county auditor on Friday to discuss the potential projections for the waste levy as we continue to review the budget for that. Also, we're getting just a few Amelia lighting petitions in dribs and drabs. Again, at this point, it's not closed out. If anyone still wants to respond, the information to download a petition is all available on our website. People have been calling or emailing their thoughts on that. So people are still welcome to do that. And as was stated before, the Easter egg hunt preparation is underway. I noted on the end of this agenda the actual date and time. So it's planned for April the 9th at Locust Corner Park for children ages 10 and under. And the Easter Bunny arrives at 10 a.m. to begin to be available for photos. So more information as more details come along. So we've increased the number of eggs in total, and we have a lot of volunteers in the audience that have been helping to do that stuffing with Donna Can, who's managing the whole project. So we appreciate that. I think that's all I have right now.
All right. Yeah, thanks guys for helping out with that each year. I think it's. Well, the kids certainly enjoy it, that's for sure.
Loretta, how many more petitions have we had in the last few weeks? That's curious. Lighting petitions returned.
Maybe half a dozen, if that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We have any old business? Constitutes old. All right, new business. Debbie.
I request a motion for approval of the payment of payroll for the month of January in the amount of $411,000, $7.61, and for February, $402,127.51.
So moved.
Second.
Debbie, roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman
Yes.
and Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
And why there's 2 months, because we weren't balanced out yet because of the financial reports not done yet. but they are not.
Gotcha.
I request a motion for approval of payment of the bills for the month of January in the amount of $294,973.53, and for February in the amount of $273,332.57.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Chief Brocksterman.
Police Chief Paul Brockstrom, I request a motion to approve payment to Lexipol LLC in the amount of $7,295.85. Lexipol writes and maintains our policy manual. They're a national company, so many police departments use them throughout the country because they keep up on legal updates and best practices. They also issue daily training bulletins for the officers to keep abreast of any changes that are made. So it's a very valuable resource that we have.
Okay. Loretta, is that the same people we're using for the general policy manual?
No, this is specific to police because as laws change, automatically those bulletins come out and they must be put into place.
All right. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Just get one. It's easy, ease into it.
Yeah, he's just trying to, he's trying to dip his toes in the water
That's right.
easily.
Chief Wright.
I request a motion to accept the resignation of full-time Captain Nick Holtz effective March 7th, 2022 at 0700 hours.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you. I request a motion to approve the purchase of 12 MISH full cut ballistic helmets with a 7-pad system and BOA harness in the amount of $4,180 to Protect Sales.
Motion.
Motion.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Service Director Kohler.
I request a motion to accept the 2-year fertilization program contract with Sullivan Services in the amount of $6,168.34, which will include liquid fertilizer in the Pierce Township Cemetery.
Motion.
There's a joke in there, but I'm not going to touch it.
Second. Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Service Department Director John Kohler requests a motion to accept the 2-year ground maintenance contract with Sullivan Services in the amount of $36,608.64.
Just curious, John, I'm sure it has. I expect it to have gone up, but has it gone up?
1.5%.
That's not bad.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we've added a lot more to it too.
Yeah, Bill treats us really well. He likes having this contract and he doesn't like to play with it.
Yeah.
So.
The breakdown per parcel was, I thought,
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly.
Yes. John.
I request a motion to accept the 2-year spring clean contract with Sullivan Services in the amount of $10,754.
What's the spring clean entail again?
It's edging all the flower beds, preening them, and then mulching. Basically everything on this grounds, across at the park, and so on.
Okay. Seems reasonable to me. The motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Debbie.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. Director Kohler.
I request a motion to accept the 2-year ground maintenance contract with Sullivan and Sons in the amount of $20,336.
Are these the same guys as Sullivan?
It's his son's company.
Okay.
So one's his, and then because we broke it down to where he's doing the stuff that we've taken on, the new stuff that we've taken on. His son started another company so that he could keep up with doing it.
Okay,
So,
just curious.
Can I throw in one quick thing?
Yes.
In case any of you are wondering, thinking that maybe John is taking one project and breaking it into pieces to avoid bidding rules, the answer is he's not, because Ohio bidding statutes for townships do not require any bidding requirement for groundskeeping and maintenance.
Thank you, Tom. If I thought that, I certainly would have said it.
what's that?
If I thought that, I
was
certainly
curious
would have
when I
said it.
saw the Sullivan.
Yeah, I was just curious about the Sullivan and Sons that popped in all of a sudden. All right, do I have a motion?
Motion?
Seconded.
Roll call?
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Service Department, I request a motion to accept the 2-year spring clean contract with Sullivan's and Sons in the amount of $710.50. That's for Shank and Grow,
It's for what?
for Shank Park and Grow Park.
Oh, Shank and Grow. Okay. Motion.
Seconded.
Roll call?
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
And also that island in the middle of Huntsman's Trace.
Okay. All right, one more.
I request a motion to authorize payment of the Claremont County 2022 stormwater permit fee of $4,456.78.
You want to explain that just in a little?
It's basically, it's to pay for the services for Claremont County to
Comply with the EPA.
comply with EPA
regulations.
rules is what it is all about. So that, because we have to keep track of any illicit discharges or anything like that, and the county holds all that for us. And
We're talking about on township roads, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
A motion?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
And now for the event of the evening.
Eddie, it's all you. All right. Speaking of the mic.
So
Drum roll, please.
I request a motion for resolution 2022-005, a resolution changing the street name of Cleveland Lane identified on record plat for Woodside Park Section 4A, which is a street only accessible from Cedarwood, to, and then, so we have 3 options, which I'll name shortly. And this is to avoid conflict with existing Cleveland Lane, which does not connect. It's only accessible through 125. So the 3 names that staff is currently recommending.
In no particular order.
Yeah, no particular order. Fleetwood Lane, Pinewood Lane, and Red Cedar Lane. The situation's a little more complicated as well because I spoke to Ms. Dabney, who also has something to add, which I didn't know of until this evening. But those are the 3 names so far that we have for sure that I searched them through GIS. I did not see any duplicates. But the official authority on making a determination as to whether or not those names could be recommended is going to be the engineer's office. So from here, you'll make a recommendation. That recommendation will go to the engineer's office. They'll produce a report that will then be their recommendation to the county commissioners, and the county commissioners will make the official approval, denial, or modification.
Okay, do we have some public?
Hold on.
No.
We have one more reveal. Remember, you said Mrs. Dabney has one more suggestion. So she's going to give us the
Yes.
4th
Okay, well, that's what I
Final
was soliciting. Okay.
name for this road.
Well, last month, I remember a comment being made that there's one resident that currently lives over there, and maybe they should be the ones to name it. Well, nobody from the council had approached them. So I reached out to her again today, and the story is that she is living there with her fiance. She's going to have 2 stepdaughters. When they get married, her last name will become Sample. So she's thinking Sample Wood Lane.
Okay, well, that's very important.
If that doesn't work, then she's okay with Rosewood.
There you go.
Okay, all right. Eddie, have we done a search on, I doubt there's a sample wood, but have we looked at
I
that?
have not searched those yet.
Okay, that seems pretty unique.
Yeah.
We're probably safe on that as far as a duplicate, I would think.
So between last meeting and this evening's meeting, I did attempt to get in touch with the property owners. We went through what the auditor had listed, which was Welsh Development and then NVR, which is, it's Ryan Homes and Welsh Development are the two owners of record. So we tried to reach out, but we were not aware of the new family actually that had moved in at the time.
Okay,
So now we have 4 names to send to the county, and you need a motion for us to,
Yeah, so I've got 5 on my list here.
5 on your list now?
yeah, so we're gonna need to prioritize one of them and send that as a recommendation to the county with the
Yep.
others as auxiliary, you could pop them in if that first one doesn't work, right?
Right.
Okay,
So I think we should do this the only logical and civilized way. And I think we should hold off on passing this motion till Eddie can put all 5 names down on a piece of paper and we'll draw it out of a hat.
Well, I had an alternative suggestion. I thought since those folks are the inaugural residents of the street that we name it Samplewood, so.
Yeah.
Samplewood, that's their recommendation. It's their street. They're the only ones there.
Sounds
So
fine to me.
That would be my motion.
yeah, they have the
Okay.
most skin in the game. I
So
think.
Samplewood would be the primary, and then if the county says no, which I can't see why they would.
Then they can pick out of the hat for the
Then they
other
can pick
4.
out of the hat, okay?
You might want to
That
send
sounds-
to, just to make sure there's no delay, in case Samplewood for some reason.
What was her second choice?
Okay, Rosewood, right?
Rosewood.
All right,
There you
so,
go.
do I have a motion to make a recommendation to the county to rename what is currently West Cleveland? Just Cleveland, rename that portion of Cleveland to Samplewood as our primary recommendation.
Samplewood Lane.
Samplewood Lane is our primary recommendation. And Rosewood Lane is our secondary recommendation. With the 3 alternates that Eddie had previously suggested. Just in case both those fail, we don't want to have to come back here again.
Yeah, we've played with this enough.
All right.
I'll make that motion.
Seconded.
You got
And while it
Debbie?
was fun,
All right, so roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thanks, Eddie. Loretta.
I request a motion for resolution 22-006, which is a resolution supporting local businesses or basically to buy local. I don't actually have the resolution in front of me, but basically it was recommended at the last meeting that we put on the record the trustees' direction to staff as well, even though it's a practice that really already exists, that whenever we're buying goods and services for the township, we first look local, Pierce Township. Secondly, the county. Thirdly, the state, thirdly, the region, and then eventually the state is our prioritization. And then, of course, US of A. So this resolution is written to detail out that procedure and that the wishes of the trustees are known to all of the staff.
So moved.
I request.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
And Mr.
Yes.
Thank you.
Loretta, still you?
So we had some discussion in a prior meeting regarding the request we received from the Legendary Run Homeowners Association for us to have the lighting upgraded in Legendary Run phases 1, 2, and 3. And with the energy savings in the long run and with the proper timeline for these improvements, we should be able to manage under the existing assessment, although that is reviewed annually. And it may take 6 months at least before the new equipment would be in place before we would begin to see any savings on the energy costs, but I think it's about 60%. Mr. Moats, I believe, is here if there's any questions of the HOA related to the process they went through to gain the support and agreement from the residents, if you want to call on him before we actually consider the motion.
Okay, Mr. Moats, do you have anything to add or?
Well, I'm here with fellow board members of Rex Johnson.
If you could come up, please,
Yep, sorry.
then you'll be on the record. It doesn't pick up from back there.
So I'm here with fellow board members, Rex Johnson, who is our president, and Chris Mulvaney, who's another board member. And first of all, I really want to thank Loretta and John. We've spent a fair amount of time with them on this topic and with the various proposals that Duke has provided. So they provided 7 or 8 different proposals with different timelines. And together, we narrowed it down to 5 or 3 option 3 years and 5 years, which seemed to be the most prudent. The goal was to try to match the cash flow of the upgrade with the existing assessment so that the homeowners in Legendary Run could enjoy the upgrade, but without having to spend additional money up front. And then ultimately the savings over 20 years will save arguably somewhere between $2.5 to $3 million. So each homeowner over that period will save, probably $5,000, $6,000. I'd also like to thank each one of you. I mean, you've all from time to time been at our meetings and your predecessors have talked about this topic. We think that the upgrade is right. We postponed it. We originally looked at this in 2017. But the color of the lamps was such that we felt was going to be too stark of a white, that it would just be displeasing. And so this is a warmer light. It's still not going to be as rosy and pinky as what we have today. But when you look at the energy savings, we think that the time is right for this upgrade. Now, 2 things that we did, just so you're aware of it, at our annual meeting in December, we actually had a sample of the very light fixture we're planning to utilize. Duke was kind enough to get us a sample that we could plug in. We had it at the meeting and then we took it outside afterwards. And we asked by a show of hands at the meeting if people were in favor of it, and didn't count, but it seemed unanimous or nearly unanimous at that point in time. But when Loretta and I were talking the middle of last month, she wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be pushback. And so we, as a community, we have a website, as you may be aware, and we're able to email all 612 residents. And so that was done. Actually, Chris was involved with that. And so it was emailed out. And then there were, we asked for commentary as well as any questions. And everyone was in favor. Most were in favor of the 3-year option, not the 5. Loretta and I have gone back and forth, and we understand the cash flow concerns. And so we're agreeable to the 5 with the understanding that as savings occur, that actually that assessment should be lowered within a year and a half. Because right now we're funding about $150,000. The 5-year plan is $100,000 roughly, and I'm rounding and so forth per year. But so there should pretty quickly, once this gets done, should be some pretty significant savings that will be realized. Anyway, everybody was positive. There were a couple of people that, like I said, had questions about how that cash flow was going to work. And I bet I sent you a list, I believe, of everybody that had responded. So we feel very good about it. We think it's the right time. It's being a good steward of our community and of our resources, and trying to have a somewhat green posture. So anyway, I probably spoke longer than Loretta had wanted, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Moats, I'm the fiscal officer, and Loretta and I did look at all the numbers and everything. That's why we basically kind of went with the 5-year, because of looking at previous years, the cash flow just wasn't there. That's why we had to do an increase. But if we do see a difference in the billings, like this month, I paid for your lights. The total bills was $12,600 for the month, which has gone up. So, but if we start seeing it going down, then we can lower the assessment, and we can always do that.
That sounds great. Yeah, and so Duke has told us that if we green light them, in the next week or so, it's probably going to take 6 months for them to do it. And so before we see any significant savings, it's probably a year from now. So, we trust that you'll keep a close eye on that. We do have a couple people that want to be on that task force, though, to monitor it. So just know that.
My door's always open.
Yeah. So anyway.
I'm here most of the day, so my door's open.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Just act like a little more of a dilettante than slightly more. What is an assessment? So how does an assessment work, Loretta, with the lighting
Well, Debbie
district?
can explain
Or
that.
Debbie?
Is put on their property tax bill, and that's what it is assessed that way. So when it's a separate line item on the property tax. So they pay it through their taxes, but then I make the checks out, and it's a special line item.
I see. But the amount that they pay for that particular assessment is above and beyond their other township and county and other taxes. It's an added expense
Specific to the
for
benefit that they receive.
a service or a benefit that they are receiving specific to them.
And when Legendary, did put the lights in Legendary before my time, but, they wanted to assess the street light. So we pay it, and that's why we do it.
So they really do fund their own street
They
lighting
do.
over
They
there.
can take the bills if they want. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I was just.
All three, that was unanimous.
I see.
It seems like a great win-win. It seems like a great cost savings over time, surely.
Give it to them.
Yeah, I just wanted to, in case anybody's watching, to just kind of drill down on that a little bit and
But
explain.
that's what it is. So.
Okay.
And on
They
that,
assess them.
and on that same vein, if a new subdivision were to be built, this similar concept would apply, right?
Well,
Okay.
generally, our policy is not to create any more lighting districts. I mean, we're working on the Amelia situation is unique, but all of the new subdivisions have their own homeowners association, and the homeowners associations take responsibility for that when it's developed.
I see.
And,
Okay.
and
We're very sure.
and one other thing.
I try to keep it down as much as possible, but when I have to carry over to the following year and I don't have enough money, then I have to borrow from the general fund to pay them. So you don't have any late fees.
You're carrying a surplus balance for us right now, correct?
Not when, so I can explain the timeline, and I gave a spreadsheet to Mr. Modes. So we only receive revenues, even though you're paying your taxes whenever you pay your taxes, we don't receive revenues but in April and August. So with the way the bills are running, we're in a deficit situation by the time we get into the first 2 or 3 months. We have to have that carryover balance from the end of the year because we don't get money again until the following April. So that's why we really don't have a balance, because it doesn't run, with cash flow based upon the January to
And
December.
we may get more in the first draw from under taxes than we do the second, because maybe some people pay their property taxes in full for the year. So we may receive a larger amount then than we do in the second half. So I really do watch my numbers. Alan will tell you that. It's my tax dollars too that I pay. So I try to carry enough over to cover my 3 months until I receive my first amount from the county.
But I think there's also another important note for those who are watching at home and abroad. This gap is only because of the collections of taxes from the county. So the money flows to the county, comes back to us. So it's that period of time. So it might be a month or so. When we take the money out of the general fund, that money is paid back.
Right.
So it's never a situation where we're covering that cost. We're covering that cost until the revenue goes into the account. And then we pay back the general fund. So that's why that operates that way. And this is a very unique circumstance. No other, I mean, Prestwick doesn't operate this way. You know, none of the other subdivisions work this way. But this is a lighting district, just like all other lighting districts. The township does not pay for that. It's paid for by the residents inside that subdivision. This is just a little bit different working of that very same task.
When they set up Legendary back in the day, that's what they wanted.
Yeah. The developer at the time set up a whole host of financial mechanisms, and one of those is this.
So in theory, if a street or neighborhood or whatever would want to have streetlights on their street, subdivision, whatever, could they initiate a petition amongst the residents of that defined area to us to establish that?
Yes.
They can request it by petition, then you would have a hearing and you would make a determination as to whether you wanted to set a new district up.
But oftentimes, if you're going to do it, well, so we didn't have any HOA assessments in Country Club. They had let the covenants expire. And in order to get HOA assessments, you had to get 100% of the signatures of the people. And it kind of makes somewhat of sense because you bought the house under a certain premise that you didn't have this extra expense. And then, you know, now you have it. So you're kind of implementing something on someone as far as charging them more taxes or another assessment that they didn't necessarily agree to. You know, that's kind of my vantage point on it. So
If you backfill.
if you backfill, and so you might have 80% approval and 20% non-approval, but the 20% are getting a tax instituted upon them that they don't want. Perhaps. That's how it worked with reinstituting. If you do it at the time when the neighborhood is established, it's a lot cleaner, obviously. And when you buy your property and you buy your house, you buy it under a certain premise. It's obvious, it's upfront, you know what you're getting when you come in. This would be more of a retroactive type of thing, which makes it it makes it unique to say the least.
What Pete was asking.
Yeah, I just want to understand the
Right,
law,
right.
basically how it works. If a certain group of residents would want that, how would it mechanically work? That's all.
If a neighborhood was already established, it was already platted, all the residents are already there, and then they decide they wanted to install lighting that they never had, that the developer didn't put in, which would be very costly, but they could petition for it to be done at a later date following the code. It's terribly expensive. So really, these are initiated at the point that the development is created. And then that petition would be the single owner, I would say, would be the developer at that point. So at this point, what we say to the developer is, you're going to have a homeowners association, therefore we don't need to create a lighting district, because the homeowners association is what we recommend handle that, because many townships don't want to be in the business of collecting these payments and changing the assessments, because it's seen as an additional tax, even though it's not like a levy, but it's misunderstood sometimes by residents because it's an additional fee tacked onto their tax bill that is coming to the township. But really, it's a wash. We don't intend to take in any more than is necessary to carry that fund balance to pay the bills until we receive the next payment of taxes. But they voluntarily ask. You can do something that's more common and easy to understand is for assessment of sidewalk repairs, for instance. A lot of times that's something that will come later in time because a sidewalk needs repair, and it's an option for a property owner to have that assessed on their taxes over time if they can't bear the initial expense themselves.
Does yours include, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Even with the HOA, that's established from the onset. So, it's definitely good to clarify a lot of this, but generally my point was it's way easier and cleaner to establish any of this from the onset. If you don't establish it from the onset, you have trying to get people on board, kind of in a unanimous sense, that's very difficult to do.
Absolutely.
Which is playing out in Amelia right now, former village of Amelia. But having said that, I so move on Loretta's motion.
Did I read the whole thing?
I thought you
Do I
did.
need to?
You
Okay.
do it again. Just do it.
Well,
and-
there it is. I request a motion authorizing the administrator to enter a 5-year agreement with Duke Energy for LED lighting upgrades for Legendary Run phases 1, 2, and 3 to be paid for by the Legendary Run Lighting District Assessment.
I'll second.
Okay, if nobody else wants to hear any more discussion about lighting and assessments, so everybody had their fill.
What we could
Any,
do, what we could do is have a special meeting to just talk about.
I was only gonna analogize this to the Amelia situation where the township has created a petition for those citizens. And that process is very similar to this, except then that process, you've said you're not gonna consider it until they reach over 50%. And even then, you still have to have a hearing and determine if that's what the citizens want. That's why what's really important here is that Mr. Mott's confirmed that the Legendary Run citizens are strongly in favor of it. Otherwise, you could be blasted by the people who don't want them.
Well, but
So
add
this is
add
good.
to it, this is a lighting district that's been put in place for how many years at this point? So, so you can argue about the lights, or you can argue about the savings, or you can do, but really what we're doing is we're just agreeing to a system.
So it's good.
We should be all right.
You're all right.
Until
And-
my dad calls and he's mad about his tax.
Tell him to call Pete. Just tell him to take it up with Pete. Don't have him call me.
All right,
Call
so
Pete.
I have a motion and a second, and no other public comment. All right, roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Lastly, I request a motion authorizing an agreement with the Clangers Group to design and bid improvements for Grow Park and Locust Corner Park in the amount of $43,900. And this is something I think we've talked about these park improvements several times. We do know what funding sources we'll use for this agreement. This would make improvements to the playground at Grow Park and the Locust Corner Park ball field side, relocating the baseball field, relocating the basketball court, and putting all new fencing up around the tennis court as well. So this is to design those improvements. This is to prepare everything that's necessary to bring it to bid. So I make that motion.
Go ahead, sorry.
Have a motion.
I'll make the motion, and I'll just say that how exciting this must be for especially the kids over around Grove Park to see this kind of a transformation coming in the near future. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. All right. Other business. So we do have an executive session.
I
Consider.
don't know if you want to entertain any other public comment
No, I was
before
gonna
you.
get there. I was gonna get there.
No.
Just didn't have the chance.
Give him a
Couldn't get
chance,
there quick
man.
enough. But before we do, I'd like to bump up the any other public comment or open floor discussion, because I would say we're probably not going to be taking action, and we can drill down on that. before
I
we make
think
the
you may be coming back.
We might be taking
Yes.
action. Okay, so let me redact that. We
Sure.
may be taking action. So if you want to stick around, have at it. But I would like to get the public comment, open floor discussion, in case we have anybody else that wants to have anything to add. Stan, come on up.
Sorry, Stan.
I know.
On my favorite subject, clinages. What are we spending $43,900 on? Well, this is to design a park. I mean, let's be realistic. You've got the diameter of the park and you're going to put a playground over here and some stuff. 43 grand? I mean, honestly,
Loretta, can you walk through
Loretta?
it for him?
I mean, I can't even imagine, I can't even remember how much money we've spent with clinages, but it's a bloody lot of money. and to spend another 43.9, so they're gonna move the playground over here. Well, big deal. I mean, it's a ball field, for Christ's sake. What are you gonna do? You've got to turn around and move it over there. And we need to spend 43 grand on a plan. And that's what you do on the back of a piece of paper. For God's sake.
All right. Loretta, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, there'll be a topographical survey involved so that when the contract is let, the contractor knows the points to actually put the improvements on the site. They have to identify the specifications for the equipment, what age groups the playground equipment is to serve, what elements it's to have, what pathways need to be redesigned or created in order to get to that equipment in the new site, as well as then the same thing for the ball fields, the reciting of it, the specification for the gauge of the fencing, the height of the fencing, all of the details that go in. I know we've done a lot of things piecemeal over the years, but this is to put the whole plan together, to document it, to have it available, and then those documents can be used for future documents, for future improvements.
Well, there's also a piece in here to put together the bid packages, the bid specifications, and to handle the approach for getting the new equipment for both, well, the park and then
The whole
other
legal
fence things.
process that we have to go
Right,
through.
which is another piece of the ARPA program, because you have to justify, you have to document everything that you're doing. I don't think that our staff has the time to handle that, do they, Loretta?
No, we don't.
You don't want to do
We
that?
have designers in-house.
And add to it, you have to have that documentation to back up your use of the funds. I don't think that the Parks Committee wants to do that, do you? Do you have the capability or the experience to do that? So wouldn't you want a professional to handle that? That's right, because I don't really feel like getting an audit from the feds and then coming in and saying that we've done something incorrect. So that's another reason why you do it. It's another reason why we hire lawyers. That's another reason why you can come on down and talk if you'd like. There's the microphone. Correct. He broke the rule. He is breaking the rule
You're
right
breaking the
now.
rule. Hurry up, talk
Come
fast.
on, get
Talk
it.
fast, you're coming down.
I have been audited by the Fed, and it's no fun. And it also gives you professional people, they have certificates, degrees, and all these people that help reduce the township's liability. That would be my thing.
Thank you, sir.
Loretta, did those funds come entirely from ARPA, that 43?
I wasn't going to speak to that. I was going to let Debbie speak to that because I realized we may need to follow up with a resolution if we're using
If we're gonna do
ARPA
that, yeah.
money.
So we've got to have federal guidelines on with this money. But then we have Prestwick
Mhm.
that we can use also with this.
But this would be the first step in making sure we cross the
Actually, I think
Ts and
that
dot
is-
the Is. And if we were going to use that money, this would set us up to do so.
Correct.
Isn't there somebody else we can use?
Yes, please. Come on up.
Mr. Moats is going to answer that question.
So I used to own Moats Engineering. I sold it about 7 years ago, but I've been involved in a lot of construction. I still work for the firm. We're involved in probably over $2 billion for the construction right now in Ohio and Florida. Kleinger's is a firm that we've worked with for years. I have no financial relationship with them, but they are by far in this region of the country the best around. We've done almost, if you've seen the transformation of Xavier University's campus over the last 15 years, they've been involved with all of that. We're working with them at Cincinnati Country Day, doing a new football field for them. We're working with them at Purcell Marion High School. When I say we're working with them, we're on a team in both those. They are by far the most outstanding. And to the gentleman's point back there about protecting the township, I mean, there's codes on these playgrounds, you know, and having the right substrates and materials so that when a child falls, you know, that they're protected and not hurt. And And this isn't something that's a game that you can play on the back of a napkin. And the potential liability is real. And so get the professionals. I've never felt that Kleinger's, when they've worked for us, have ever been unfair with us price wise. But I tell you, they've saved us a lot of money over the years. And so, what's the saying? Cheap stuff isn't neat, and neat stuff isn't cheap. Well, it costs something to do this. And I think you'll be exceedingly pleased with them. The other benefit of having a partner like that, if you use a different vendor every time you have something, well, it's like you don't have a partner. But I think I know Kleinger's has been involved with a lot of your stormwater management and other things. And they become a partner, and they feel like they're an extension of your people. And to me, that's what you want. And I think they're one of the best, as I said, in this region. So anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Do I have any more public comment? Just come on up. The Bill first.
All right, good evening. Just a brief update on the fire study. It's a work in progress. We're continuing to refine it. The initial draft is in the hands of the fire chief, Ms. Roki, but we're still have a lot of sections we're working on. We have to add information on the mutual aid to and from Pierce Township. We're adding new sections on the ability of the fire department to work with the other area services in terms of flooding and the dangers posed to certain residents during the flooding season. We are also trying to update the national standards and get the very latest best practices. So it's very early. I did tell the chief, without any additional fees, I've agreed to add a additional section in terms of implementation of improvements, where we will, when this study is finally laid out and we have a master plan outlined, we will be putting timelines and target dates, people in charge of various sections to improve the department. I think this would wait until the fire chief has some additional assistance at the managerial level in his department. That should work well. So I've had great cooperation. I passed out my pens with the phone number on it for all who wanted to give me input. I did get quite a good amount of input, and I appreciate the good community service. So I thank you all for your great work here, and I always enjoy coming to Pierce Township. Good evening.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thanks, Bill. All right, Stan, you want to piggyback on what Bill was mentioning about the.
And he doesn't work for Kleinger's. Just to be
Good.
clear.
You mentioned ARPA, funds coming from ARPA was a comment I heard. Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm not sure I know what it is.
ARPA is the most recent version of CARES Act.
Oh,
Right.
Oh,
So
it's free money. Oh.
American Recovery and whatever Act.
That was easy. Yes, please.
I thought you were going to try to stay back there at the chair. I was like, he just had to stretch the rules.
You mentioned Prestwick Place. We had one TIF originally. How are the other ones going? Because I know if you drive through there, they've already started working on the salient down the back, which I thought was to be the last stage. And there's probably 130 houses in there already. How's the second and third TIFs going?
Well, the first TIF is already in place, as you know, and it's already generating revenue at a higher rate than we'd anticipated. And the second TIF is in the state process right now and is scheduled to begin generating revenue in 23, tax season 23. So it would start to generate revenue this year, correct? No, 24.
Well, I'll clarify that.
Yeah, that'd be
also when
good.
we
Thank
meet
you.
with the auditor on Friday.
Okay, well, that's good. So nothing is coming in from two, but one is generating $210,000 worth of revenue. And we have currently a surplus of almost $400,000 in that account. We've been tracking it very closely. In fact, at our last meeting on the 28th, we had a report of exactly how much money was coming in, and it tracked how we could pay off Bradbury, Cole Road, and the work in the park in 4 years. So it's already generating enough revenue to do that, and plus kickoff surpluses. So we want to be careful about that. We don't want to say for everything that ails us, Prestwick will cover it. But at the same token, we are watching it closely enough to know that we can afford to do these things. 23.
You're not correct to two, but there were 4 phases and it's not necessary to TIF the final 2 phases. And that's one of the things that, we want to be sensitive also to the needs of the school district. If we are funding the projects as needed by those funds, there's no reason to create a fund balance like we have in the Walmart TIF that is restricted, you can't use. There are only so many things that benefit that community that are fair and appropriate to be funded with that money. There are restrictions. And at this point, with those 2 TIFs in place, we'll be able to generate sufficient revenue to meet the necessities to benefit that community.
And it's also important to note too, that as we did the TIFs, TIF number 1 was the largest of the TIFs. TIF number 2 was slightly smaller than the first TIF, but as you started to get into TIF number 3 and or TIF number 4, you're breaking the community down into such a small component that it really wasn't worth the paperwork or the process necessary to actually create that TIF. So as long as we knew we were getting the revenue that we were seeking to cover Bradbury and Cole particularly, we felt like we were comfortable with just 2.
Doesn't it have, isn't it going to have? I remember we specified to have a homeowners.
Mhm.
It does.
Is it not one homeowners association?
Yes.
I think it is fair that the state houses and the other houses on that side do not get it too, but all the original houses do.
I guess that would.
Doesn't increase their
Yeah, it
taxes.
doesn't increase the tax.
Yeah. Anything else to come up to the microphone? You want to talk more? Come on up. But they don't get taxed anymore any less if they're in a TIF. It's just a redirectment of that money. So
Yes.
it shouldn't affect, they
Well,
shouldn't.
Well, don't forget, if it's TIF, we get the county's money.
Yeah.
And if you're not TIFing this bit, we're not getting the county's money. That doesn't make any sense. It seems unfair.
Unfair to
Well, we
who?
just
Well,
explained.
unfair, if I was living on this side and you were TIFing my half and getting the county's money for it, but you weren't TIFing the other half and getting the county's money for that, I'd not be a happy camper.
It's
No,
no.
well, we did just go over that with, trying to be fair with the projects that we have to fund. You don't want to landlock a bunch of money that you can't spend anywhere. And you want to make sure the schools get their fair shake,
Well, they
moving
get their
forward.
share. That's how.
And we
that's
do
how
have
you
people
it when you set it.
vacating the meeting now, Stan, and we got mass exodus.
I think that the fairness doctrine doesn't apply. I mean, the tax burden is the same for everybody. And in fact, half of the community is helping pay for improvements in the park. Well, actually, the whole community, because they're paying their taxes too, not at a 1075 clip. So
Correct.
they're
They're
paying
paying full
100% of their tax burden. So at the end of the day, it all goes to the same pot. It ends up benefiting the community as a whole. So your fairness doctrine doesn't work.
That's not how we originally planned it. We originally planned to tip the whole lot.
No, we did not.
We did.
We tiffed as we went. And that was never a policy that anybody ever adopted here. Nor is it anything, where is that?
All right, so,
Where's the documentation to back that up, the policy?
all right.
I asked him a question.
Stan, you want to come back up?
I asked him a question.
All right, fair
I
enough.
couldn't produce documentation for it, but I remember the discussions at zoning. We mentioned, we asked, was it going to be TIFed? And at previous meetings, one of the questions was, how is it going to be TIFed? And I think it was you who said we would do it in the segments as it was approved. And it was set into 4
Isn't that what we
segments. You have to go back through. I mean, it's
But
like 4 years
isn't that
ago.
what we did?
I think that's what we.
I can
That's what we said.
That's what we
do
did.
that if you like.
We tipped, go
Yeah,
ahead.
but you did 1 and 2 and you're not doing the other ones.
But why would we? If we don't feel that we need it, why would we take the money from the schools why would we segregate the money from schools from our police
You're not
department.
taking it from the schools because you sit down and you allow a certain portion to go to the schools, if I remember.
Not in a
It's a-
1075.
It's still a deferment of, they don't get as much.
Right.
It's still 75% and 10. You just don't have to ask for approval because you're under a certain
Right.
threshold. So you did mention that, do it on phases, right? And so that's what we're doing as it's
What we do.
approved. So
In the
I
phases,
appreciate
we
the input.
evaluated how much
Stan,
revenue it was
and we're gonna move
generating,
on.
because when we estimate, we always estimate conservatively. So the first TIF revenues were greater than we had originally anticipated. We've gone forward with the second TIF, and we expect those revenues. Again, values have gone up by the time these houses have been built. We were estimating $300,000 houses, I think, when we originally projected. So with the revenue should be generated with those first two phases, it's just not necessary to proceed with phases 3 and 4. Just as, we could say that there's other new subdivisions that are being created. It's not necessary to TIF every one of them. And it's not tied to zoning approvals at all. TIFs have nothing to do with zoning processes or approvals or commitments. So we've identified what was necessary, what was needed, what was beneficial to the community, and what were worthy projects. 2 major road projects and some major park projects. So beyond that, there may be some revenues that remain. At some point, we may need to make some road improvements in that community, or, something else that has a nexus, that has a relationship to benefiting those who are having those taxes redirected. But it's just not necessary to proceed, even though it was discussed in 4 phases. But after the first 2, we've generated sufficient, so there's no reason to take money away from police and fire, EMS, other taxing jurisdictions, and redirect it all into this one pot of money. So that's where we're at, looking at it every year.
All right. Any other public comment? All right, not hearing any. So now I need a motion to enter executive session as authorized by Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22 G1, to consider the appointment, employment, and compensation related to public officials, and ORC 121.22 G4 to review negotiations with bargaining unit employees. And to be sure, we may take action when we come out of this executive session. We're not sure.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Here we go.
I did.
Eddie, are you ready? All right. So I need a motion to come out of executive session.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And now that we're out of executive session,
Yes, motion.
let's see. So let's start with Chief Broxman. You want to go ahead and put forth your motion that you're asking for?
Okay. Police Chief Paul Brockstrom requests a motion to adopt and post a full-time, non-sworn position for police technician. The job functions would include administering the body-worn camera program, managing the property room, and researching and filling public records requests.
Okay. Can you talk just a little bit more about why, the growing scope of work and your needs within the department?
Right. So with the property room, our person that filled that position has retired. And it's quite a bit of time involved in managing the property room as far as processing evidence and taking it to the labs and so forth. With the body worn camera program, we expect to have our new program in place in 3 months. There's quite a bit of work in putting forth that program. Once it's in place, redacting and locating body worn cameras for court, for prosecutors and defense attorneys, and so forth, and keeping up with the equipment. And finally, with the public records request, we get several of those a week. And it takes some time to research Ohio records law and fill those requests.
Okay.
So we would rather have a full-time non-sworn position handle these duties versus taking an officer off the street to perform these duties.
Gotcha. Okay. Comment on the motion? Or?
No, I think it's a good idea. I think it makes a lot of sense for a whole lot of reasons. And I do like the idea of not taking an officer off the street where we need them the most. So I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
And
Yes. All right, Chief Wright.
I request a motion to approve the 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the Pierce Township and the Pierce Township Professional Firefighters Local 4979, and to authorize Administrator Roki to execute the contract.
So moved.
Seconded.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes. Chief Wright.
Thank you. I'm also going to request a motion to approve the job description for a deputy fire chief and to create the position within the fire department.
Okay. Also growing needs.
Yes, growing needs, we're getting busier. The administrative functions are getting more. We don't have an administrative assistant. So a lot of those administrative functions fall on myself and the assistant chief, which we have a process for now. I just think the needs are getting more. I think it sets us into a better path to help manage the department and take things to the next level. I'd be happy to make that motion.
Budgetarily, this seems to work within our
Yes, sir.
confines.
Yeah, based on my projections, I think we can make it work. And I met with Ms. Schwai, I went over it, and she is in agreement that we have the funds to do so.
I second the motion.
All right. I have a motion, a second. Any public comment? Debbie, roll call.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So I think that sums it up.
Yeah, I think we've got one more.
Oh,
Does Eddie need a
oh,
motion?
no, I don't. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yep.
I can
we're
make
okay.
one. Okay.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Eddie, do you?
You want me just to go ahead and make a motion? I'll make
Yeah,
it.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Planning and Zoning Administrator Eddie McCarthy makes a motion to advertise a full-time planning and zoning assistant position.
Okay. And we are losing a part-time planning and zoning assistant position, right?
And
Well,
anticipated
not-
in early
We
May.
haven't yet, but we will be.
Correct.
Okay. And again, growing administrative needs. We're a growing township.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
All right, motion a second, public comment. Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
And
Yes. Okay. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Seconded.
Roll call.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Yes, that's the first one, I think.
It's been a while.